Hey guys, I present to you the Prehistoric Planet Pack, which is a new DLC in the making that is currently in its public testing branch state. The changes in visuals and gameplay may occur after this video has been uploaded. They added a prehistoric flavored setting to the game, including new dupes, critter, plants, elements and biomes. In addition to a new threat, a giant asteroid looming over your heads representing the inevitable dread and doom your colony will be facing. The asteroid, currently called the Molia, will arrive at your destination in about 200 cycles of time, at least with the standard settings. There will be a preview of what it is aiming at, so that you can prepare in advance. So without further ado, let's start. They added a new planet called Relica in the base game, Relica Asteroid in the classic cluster of the Spaced Out DLC, and Relica Minor in the Spaced Out version of the Spaced Out DLC. Just like they introduced in the last DLCs, you can now scramble in the new DLC content by activating it in the Scramble DLC tab. You can activate certain clusters to be either disabled, likely or guaranteed, and you can do that for all of the biomes as well. In addition to that, you can go to the game settings and can change when the inevitable asteroid will strike. The default is 200 cycles, which is why I had to wait 200 cycles to record this before actually checking the settings menu. So you can completely disable it, set it to 500 cycles, 300, the default 200, an early arrival at 150 cycles until collision, or just 100 cycles until collision. There are two new duplicates to choose from. J-Ray, originally called Higby, is the Viltrumite looking one. Brian B, originally called Maya, is the lovely dupe with the pinned up hair. We now have three new biomes. The garden starting biome, housing the Mimica bud and the Mimica, the sweat corn, the Ovagro vine plant, the lump, the snectus, this one here, and the ring rose bush, this one. Then there is the feather biome, housing the rex, the dartle, dew drippers, and the megafront. The last biome is the wetland biome, this one here, housing the nits, these stabby little annoying critters, the giant jawbo, the new sea comb plant, and the lura plant. While the garden biome is temperate, the feather biome is around minus 25 to minus 30 degrees Celsius, and the wetlands biome is around plus 30 to plus 33 degrees Celsius. Starting with the plants, we do have the snectus, this one here, come on, that once dug up will act like a replacement for the mugroot, with exactly 800 kilocalories and a spoil time of never. The second new plant they added is the Ovagro plant, this one here, consisting of the Ovagro node, the main plant, and the Ovagro vines, which can produce the Ovagro fig that can be eaten for 325 kilocalories, which is not a lot, but they do have a spoil time of 8 cycles, and each single one of those vines can produce a fig, so the more vines each plant has, the more productive it will be. Because the amount of liquid, 90 kg per cycle, if domestic grown, does not increase with the number of vines, so the more vines it has, the more productive it can be. Also, these vines can grow on the walls in weird patterns, or down wall, and grow on the ceiling here as well. The replacement for mealwood in this DLC is the sweat corn. It looks like this when it is fully grown, and it looks like this when it is still a stalk. Once harvested, the plant will wilt, but you just not, and it will drop 800 kilocalories of sweat corn, whose quality is grisly, but it has a spoil time of 16 cycles. Also, you can make better food out of it, which I will show you later. Could you not? For sweat corn, they added a special requirement called pollination. As you may have already seen, the Mimica here pollinated the plant, which is one requirement for it to grow. If you grow it domestically, you only need to add peat for the fertilization. Peat, just as shale, is an element of the starting biome. The duplicates are standing on the shale, and it is here on the ceiling, and this here is peat, which can be heated up and turned into coal, or burned as it is, either inside a kiln, used in a blast shot maker, burned in a smoker, or turned into energy in a peat burner. And as you already know, you need 10 kg per cycle to grow the sweat corn stalk. To close the loop, you can feed the Ovagro fig to the lump to get peat back. And the last plant of this biome is this butterfly-like creature called Mimica, because at the end of its lifetime, it will turn into a mimulette, which is more or less the seed of this plant that can be either grilled and be eaten as toasted mimulette, or it will grow into one of these Mimica buds. These Mimica buds, once fully grown, which which takes 5 cycles, if wild grown 20 cycles, will produce another Mimica. And the Mimica is then able to pollinate the plants, such as the sweatcorn stalk here. Mimicas can also pollinate other plants. As you've just seen here, everything that is sparkling has been pollinated. This also applies to Saturn critter traps. Pollination increases the growth speed by 25% for 1 cycle. Now let's go over the critter of this biome. You have already seen the Mimica, that once you attack it and harvest it, will drop a Mimilet. And then there's the dorky looking lump, which I really like. This lovely creature right here. The lump can become one of the oldest creatures in the game with 200 cycles of age. The lump is a critter that can stomp around and automatically harvest all harvest ready plants, like you've just seen, which makes it an awesome method to harvest Saturn critter traps. There is no other method besides duplicants at the moment, or digging up the tile that it is on, and even that is not really that effective. So get yourself a lump. It feeds on the Ovagro-fig. Once it has eaten 433 calories, which is at least 2 of the Ovagro-figs, it will produce 66.7 kilogram of peat. Right here. In our case, that's just been 50. If you harvest a lump, you will get 12 kilogram of tough meat, which cannot be eaten raw because it has 0 calories and a grisly quality. Also a spoil time of 4 cycles, so be quick to make food out of it. But from the 12 kilogram, you can make 40,000 kilogram of tender brisket with a quality of +3, which is good. In the feather biome we have 3 different kinds of plants. First off, the Weeswort, you know this one. Then the Dew Dripper and the Megafront. Let's start with the Dew Dripper. The Dew Dripper, when wild grown, needs 16 cycles to grow, or just 4 cycles if domesticated. When domesticated, you will need brine ice 10 kg per cycle to feed this plant, which will probably be very annoying. Once fully grown, it will produce a Dew Drip, these ones here, a crystallized blob of Burkine that can be crushed into regular Burkine. So we got another form of making milk. Here we have a few Dew Drippers that have already produced a Dew Drip. These green things here. Here's a Dew Dripper that is currently producing a Dew Drip. The Megafront is a slow growing plant with a growth cycle of 36 cycles if wild grown or 9 cycles if domestic grown. It needs very cold temperatures, an atmosphere of chlorine gas, and it will consume 2.25 kg of chlorine gas per cycle to produce 4 units of Megafront grain per cycle. Here we do have a harvest ready Megafront, and once harvested it will drop 36. Could you not? Once harvested, it will drop 36 grain of the Megafront grain, which divided by 9 cycles for its growth will give you 4 units per cycle. The critter of the feather biome, the Dardle for example, the climbing little critter here on the wall, feed on the Dew Drippers. 1 Dew Drip eaten equals to 30 kg of bleachstone excreted. A Dardle will give the same amount of meat as a regular hedge would do, 1600 kilocalories. And the second critter of the feather biome is the Rex. This feathery giant, which is apparently an apex predator and feeds on all of the other critter, as you can see right here. Though it is not very effective at actually catching them. In order to close the resource loop, the Rex feeds on tough meat, regular meat or critter to produce brine ice. The Rex itself can be sheared in a shearing station for 4 feather fibers. And when you kill it, you get 5 kg of tough meat out of it. In the wetland biome, there's only 2 plants. The lure plant, looking like this when not fully grown, and looking like this when fully grown and ready to eat, because this is a carnivorous plant which is awaiting its prey. It can prey on flying critters like these nits here to the right, and there we go. Once it has caught a nit or any other flying critter, it will close up and be ready for the next harvest in 48 cycles. Once it has digested everything and can be harvested, it will produce 264 kilograms of amber. That is around 22 kilograms per cycle. Besides the carnivorous plants, we also have the sea comb, which is this lovely plant here. It grows in 40 cycles in the wild or 10 cycles if fertilized with polluted dirt. So in short, they need Paco poo. And then you can harvest around 10 kg per cycle, meaning it will probably drop 100 kg every 10 cycles. Yeah, the sea comb can feed tropical pacu, regular pacu and gulpfish. They eat 30% of growth per cycle to be fed. Now let's switch to the critter. This is a nit larvae. Once fully grown, it will develop into a nit. These creatures here. Nits, when placed next to duplicants, will start stinging them. A stung duplicant will get 10% stress per cycle, +5 to sneeziness and -1 to athletics. When a nit has eaten, its reproduction rate increases by 125%, which is good for at least the nit itself because it only lives for 10 cycles and then dies. Once the nit reaches 100% reproduction rate, it will lay a nit egg, which looks like this, and the critter that hatches from it, these little buggers here, needs water to survive. The next very noticeable critter is the jawbow. The jawbow has a lifespan of 100 cycles, and after eating a single pacu, gulpfish or tropical pacu will produce 20 kg of lime. So we have a new renewable source of lime. If you decide to harvest the critter, it will drop 12,000 kilocalories of jawbow fillet, which has a quality of good, spoils in 4 cycles, and can even be smoked to smoked fish, which has a quality of good as well, but a spoil time of 32 cycles and more available calories for the duplicant. These are the new elements. We got shale, peat, nickel ore, the refined nickel, amber, and solid sap, which technically is a old element, but I renamed the resin from before to solid sap. What the just seriously? Okay. And then we do have biodiesel and a very special iridium here to the far right. Let me tell you where they each come from. Could you just not destroy my stuff? Shale, peat, and nickel ore can all be found in the starting biome. Shale replaces the igneous rock, peat more or less replaces the coal, and nickel ore replaces the copper ore. But it has a better thermal conductivity once you turn it into refined metal. It has a thermal conductivity of 91. Amber, on the other hand, is produced by the Lura plant. Once fully grown, it will produce 264 kg of it, but that will take a while. Domestic 12 cycles or wild grown 48 cycles. It also will need to have eaten a flying critter. The new element amber can be turned into resin in the plant pulverizer, but you need 100 kg of it. It will end up as 50 kg of resin, 25 kg of fossil, and 25 kg of sand. This is not the same resin as before. They renamed the old resin to sap. The new resin can now be used in the polymer press to produce plastic. Solid sap or isosap will replace the commonly known resin or isoresin. Biodiesel is either made by heating up tallow, which is cool because now all the DLC users have a second use for tallow. You can even make tallow out of it by freezing it, or you can produce it in the emulsifier with the help of phyto oil and bleach stone. A renewable source of phyto oil is harvesting the sea comb, this one here, and then crush it in the plant pulverizer to get the phyto oil. And iridium, well, you get iridium, which has an awesome thermal conductivity of 170 and an overheat modifier of plus 500 degrees Celsius by having the looming asteroid crush down on your unaware planet, just like that. And everything that you can see here in this light gray color is iridium. Another option would be to shoot it out of the sky. And once you've done that, you will create, in this case, 3 singular liquid demolier debris areas in your star map. You can get molten iridium there, magma, liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. Or in this case, just gold, granite, mafic rock and iridium, as well as an artifact. Or liquid sulfur, petroleum and isosap. There also seems to be a new point of interest on the star map. An amber field, where you can get peat as a renewable resource, nickel ore, shale and amber. Just to close the resource loop, they added 3 new buildings to the game. The peat burner, the smoker and the emulsifier. The first 2 are exclusive to the DLC and the emulsifier, according to the patch notes, is available to everyone. The peat burner burns peat. Yeah, who would have guessed? It drips out liquids from the 3rd tile and produces 480 watts of power. It burns 1 kilogram of peat per second, produces 40 gram of carbon dioxide and 240 gram of polluted water per second. To make the most out of the new critter, a new building has been added, the smoker. The smoker currently can produce tender brisket smoked fish, and veggie poppers from the new resources. Tender brisket is made from tough meat, smoked fish is made from the jawbone filet, and the veggie poppers are made from the sweat corn. You will need either 100 kg of peat or 100 kg of wood and a whole cycle to produce the food in the smoker. Though from a calorie perspective, it is definitely worth it. Producing 20,000 kilocalories out of 6 kg 0 kilocalorie meat or 11,200 kilocalories out of 6,000 kilocalories of fish. And it is also almost doubled for sweat corn, making 11,450 kilocalories out of only 5,600 kilocalories of sweat corn. The third new building they added is the emulsifier, which allows us to produce salt water by just mixing regular water and salt, producing salt water in the process, or for example creating biodiesel made from food oil and bleach stone, creating the biodiesel we will need later on. You can also mix advanced stuff like viscogel and a super coolant. Not only is... Could you not, Jerry? The emulsifier is not only able to produce supercoolant and viscogel, but you have to use it because they moved the recipe from the molecular forge to the emulsifier. Viscogel and supercoolant now have to be researched in the gases tab here to the far right next to the molecular forge. And this new recipe tab here seems like it will allow us to choose multiple different ingredients later on when we have more complex recipes. For example, here in the gas range, the recipe for the mixed berry pie can be made from either sleet wheat or the megafront grain, grub fruit, and then either the pike apple skewer, the grizzleberry, or the ovacro fig, so you can choose and mix up your mixed berry pie recipes with this new setup here. The fish release now has to be submerged in water to work. You can no longer just place it somewhere on top and drop your parkour down that way. They added 4 more fossil decorations. They will be adding new skins and of course the new printing pod. Everything else will be shipped later. They added a cool chlorine vent that operates at 5 degrees Celsius. At least this one here is. They added the ability to build over plants, like in the mod. Let's check this out again. Yeah, like this. As soon as you activate this building or reach the surface of the planet, you will be shown the doom counter. It will start before, it just only shows it to you now. Which, in order to make it easier for you, is why they added the Blaster Ruins point of interest, together with a new intracosmic blast shot, which you also get as the blast shot maker recipe. This one can be loaded into the meteor blaster by selecting them here in the menu, and then you can change the target for unidentified objects or the Demolia meteor. Each intracosmic blast shot takes around 1.1 cycle to reach the Demolia meteor if it is the first way possible, and will only do 10 damage to it, so you will need 100 shots to get rid of it. So better start producing. The intracosmic blast shots can be produced at the blast shot maker, and it has a variety of potential recipes. You can use 5 different refined metals, either fertilizer or peat, and either petroleum or biodiesel. You only need to produce 100 of those. So you better start collecting your resources. Spaced out only changes. They revisited the art of the 4 red stick monument tops to make them less grisly. They reduced the burden on the rocket of the artifact transport module. They call it artifact cargo module, but I guess this is what I mean. So each one of these modules, now we are at a burden of 21, adds 3 to it. Now we are at 24. The Saturn critter trap no longer eats critter that are 2 times 2 tiles wide. They added edible critters, here land critters, to the database entry. Bionic Booster Pack only. There's now a tallow-based gear balm that can be produced in the apothecary. Provides a small amount of extra silky lubrication gear oil. Not sure if this gives a bonus or not. Do they have tongues now? But every new recipe is helpful in the long run. Bionic duplicants can now consume the power banks and the mess tables, potentially gaining a room bonus when doing so. That's at least what the patch notes say, so let's see how this works out. Yes, we did get the Great Hall buff, check this out. Also charming decor because of the lovely dangler and uncanny carapace. By the way, the recipe to make Pseudo oil from slime is now available to the base game. Okay, let's recap this. We got the snack dust, which when harvested will drop the snack food of 800 kilocalories. We got a sweet corn stalk, which in addition to peat and the pollination by the mimica will produce sweet corn, which when harvested will drop 800 kilocalories and produce a sweet corn stalk again. You can also use this and a smoker plus either peat or wood to create veggie poppers. The mimilet plus dirt will end up in a mimica bud, which once grown up will create a mimica. When the mimica dies, it will leave behind the mimilet, closing the loop. The mimilet, when you grill it on an electric grill, will produce toasted mimilet. The Ovagro node plus water and space will create the Ovagro vines and then over time produce the Ovagro figs, which can, in addition to grapefruit and either sleet wheat or the megafront grain, be used in a gas range to produce mixed berry pie. Another use case for the Ovagro fig is feeding it to the lump. The lump plus the Ovagro fig will drop peat. The lump plus a duplicant will leave behind tough meat. Tough meat can be cooked in a smoker plus peat or wood to create tender briskets. The dardle will eat the dew drip and create bleachstone. When you harvest the dardle itself, it will drop regular meat. The rex plus either meat, tough meat or basically any critter, as you can see here in the list to the right, will produce brine ice. When harvested with a duplicant, it will drop tough meat, which can be made into tender briskets again. The megafront plus chlorine gas will drop the megafront grain, which can be turned into frost bun in an electric grill or in combination with a raw egg turned into souffle pancakes. But there's a whole lot more recipes with this grain. You can make pinch pepper bread out of it in a gas range, or mixed berry pie from almost any other fruits, or even berry sludge in a microbe musher. The dew dripper plus brine ice produces the dew drip, which once pulverized in a plant pulverizer can create bracken. The lura plant plus either a nit or any other airborne critter will over time produce amber. Amber, once crushed in a plant pulverizer, will give you resin, fossil and sand. Resin then can be used in a polymer press to produce plastic. Other use cases for amber are currently not there. The sea comb plus polluted dirt will create the sea comb leaf. If you pulverize that, you will create food oil. Food oil can be used to produce carbon dioxide and algae to feed either to your pacu or use it for oxygen or energy production. Or you can combine it with bleachstone in the emulsifier and create biodiesel. The new jarbo plus any other pacu will create lime, which can be used in a metal refinery in addition to refined carbon and iron to produce steel. The food oil from before, this one here, can be used together with bleach stone in the emulsifier to produce biodiesel, and the biodiesel can be used plus peat and nickel to produce intracosmic blast shots in the blast shot maker. As I've already shown, there's a lot of recipes for that here, so you can use any of these 5 refined metals, either fertilizer or peat, and either petroleum or biodiesel. And you will need 100 of those to shoot down the asteroid of doom in the background. And now just a thing that I would note, if we scroll out, at a certain point you will see, there it is, weird lines all over the planet. It's basically the grid that you can see, but it's visually impairing and not very nice. You can also see it in the top left when the cycle counter is turning. There's this white line here turning with it, so there's probably just misaligned for 1 pixel. There's a misalignment here. And when you are in the main menu and choose the new Prehistoric Planet Pack, if you look very closely, there you can see it. You can also see a black line appearing and disappearing. Other than that, I have had no issues with this update, which is quite impressive. I really enjoyed this so far. And I also like the overgrown art style here. This is just awesome. Thank you everyone for watching and thank everyone for supporting me. A big hug to all of my patrons, to all the people that are still there. And I'm very sorry for not posting more, but I'm trying to get back into the game. Love you guys and Luma out.